So, Danny Garcia just made his return to boxing in New York with a fourth round knockout over a bloke called Daniel Gonzalez. Now, Daniel Gonzalez, again, is one of these fighters that I've never heard of before. You only sort of learn about these types of fighters until you click on their box rec, whereas Danny Garcia is far more well known and has been in there with a lot of world level guys and was a winning boxer for a very long time and then mixed it with some of the best at welterweight in particular. Notable names come to mind like Keith Thurman, Sean Porter, Errol Spence, all of which who beat him. But those are like the biggest names on his resume. Of course, in his last fight, he lost to Erislandy Lara. And again, in a way, there's no shame in losing to Lara. Lara is a tricky boxer. He's a veteran. He's been around for a long time. But you would think, Erislandy Lara should have a lot of miles on the clock. So Danny Garcia should have enough to beat him, and he didn't. And Lara won that fight pretty comfortably, I believe. It was a year ago now. It was over a year ago. So I've not got a great memory of that fight, but I believe Erislandy Lara did comfortably beat Danny Garcia. But he makes the comeback here and he gets the fourth round knockout, which was somewhat impressive. I mean, getting a knockout is always impressive, right? Unfortunately, he was a guy that I've never heard of. So it's really hard to sort of gauge where we think Danny Garcia is at. I know where Danny Garcia is at. I believe Danny Garcia is absolutely cooked. He should retire. And I hope that this truly was a retirement fight because it's a great way to go out. In New York with a fourth round knockout, a great way to go out. But I hope Danny Garcia isn't sort of wins that fight and thinks, wow, I can make a comeback, because if he's to fight one of the top guys at 154, he would get seriously hurt. And Danny Garcia is still somewhat a recognisable name. He can shift tickets. He's not a huge pay-per-view star, never has been, in my opinion. Actually, no, he was a bit of a star at 140. At 140, he was one of the big names at 140 for sure, for a long time, granted. But at the back end of his career, he's been in some big money fights, but he's lost pretty much all of them. Danny Garcia, in his prime, was a very good boxer, very quick, powerful, put combinations together, apply pressure, defensively was quite slick as well, underrated defensively. But now, like I said, if Danny Garcia was to fight one of the top 154-pound fighters, he's too old, he's too slow, he's too hittable. And you look at those big names at 154, not even the world champions. I'm not even talking about the world champions. I'm talking your Keith Thurman. I mean, Keith Thurman already beat him, to be fair. Honestly, that wouldn't have been a bad fight if that fight gets a rematch. If I'm being honest, looking at both guys stylistically and where they're at in their careers, I think it'd be a very easy win for Keith Thurman, by the way. A very easy night for Keith Thurman. But in terms of, big money names for Keith Thurman to fight, assuming, now that Fundora got injured and they are looking to reschedule that fight. But if they wasn't, and Keith Thurman was like, yeah, well, I still want to fight November, December, Danny Garcia basically took next to no damage in this fight. He more than likely could have had a pretty quick turnaround and could have fought again in December. Keith Thurman v Garcia 2 for December, that would have been great, but that's really his limit. And a Keith Thurman who's not even world champion, he would smoke him as well. He would smoke Garcia at this point. It would be brutal. But, Danny Garcia made a comeback. I'd be curious to know what you guys think of the fight. What do you think's next for Danny Garcia? Do you think he can make a run at 154, or do you think this really should be his last retirement fight? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Another episode of the Seth Solo Side Quest in the bag, and I'm out. Peace.